On the afternoon of August 20th, 1966, a boy was flying a kite on a hilltop above Niterói, a coastal city just across the bay from Rio de Janeiro. The hill was called Morro do Vintém Hill. It was a rough climb, steep, rocky, overgrown in places. Few people went up there without a reason. The boy had a reason. He was flying a kite. And then he found two men. They were lying side by side in the grass, dressed in formal suits, each wearing a waterproof coat, and over their eyes, lead masks, handmade, cut from sheets of lead, shaped to cover the upper face. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle, no obvious injuries, no indication that anything violent had occurred. There was an empty water bottle, 2 wet towels sealed in a plastic bag, and a small notebook left open. The boy ran. The two men were Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana, both from Campos dos Goitacazes, a city roughly 280 kilometers northeast of Rio. Both electronics technicians. They repaired radios, televisions, equipment. They were known in their neighborhood. They had families, regular jobs, ordinary routines. But they shared an interest that was not ordinary at all. Both were involved with a group their friends described as scientific spiritualists, people who believed it was possible to make contact with extraterrestrial beings or spirits through scientific means, through radio signals, through electromagnetic frequencies, through ritual preparation, and altered states of consciousness. On August 17, 1966, Cruz and Viana told their families they were heading to Niterói to purchase materials for work. They were seen alive once more after leaving home. Then they were not seen at all. Until the boy with the kite. August 17, 1966. Campos dos Goitacazes, Brazil. Cruz and Viana boarded a bus to Niterói. The journey took several hours. They arrived at the Niterói bus terminal at 2:30 in the afternoon. Over the next 2 hours, their movements were partially reconstructed by investigators from witness accounts and purchase records. First stop, a shop. They purchased 2 waterproof coats, the same coats that would be found on their bodies 3 days later. Second stop, a bar. They ordered water, not food, not drinks, 1 bottle of water. The waitress who served them remembered Miguel José Viana clearly. He was nervous. Visibly so, he kept checking his watch, repeatedly, as if tracking something specific. She said he seemed to be waiting for something or for someone. They finished their water. They left the bar. That was the last confirmed sighting of either man alive. From the bar, investigators believe they went directly to Vintém Hill. The route would have taken them through the streets of Niterói and up through increasingly rough terrain to the summit. The climb is difficult. Steep slopes, loose rock, dense vegetation, not a place people went casually, not a tourist route, not a shortcut to anywhere. Cruz and Viana climbed up. They did not come down. By August 20th, their families had reported them missing. That same afternoon, the boy with the kite found the bodies. Police were notified immediately. Reaching the scene proved harder than expected. The terrain was too difficult for a rapid response. Officers and firefighters attempted the climb, struggled with the slope, and retreated. A team finally reached the bodies the following morning, August 21st. By then, Cruz and Viana had been dead for at least 4 days. Nobody had seen them go up. Nobody had seen anyone else on that hill. Nobody had heard anything. When investigators reached the summit, they documented what they found. Cruz and Viana were lying side by side, both in formal suits, both covered with the waterproof coats purchased in Niterói 4 days earlier, and both with lead masks fitted over their eyes. Rectangular pieces of lead, cut by hand, shaped to cover the upper face from the nose up. Each mask was fastened in place. Around them, one empty water bottle, a sealed plastic bag containing 2 wet towels, and the notebook. No signs of violence, no external injuries. Wallets present, money untouched, no indication of a struggle, nothing displaced, nothing broken. The notebook contained one entry, written in Portuguese. Translated, it read, 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Await the mass signal. No explanation, no names, no context, no indication of who wrote it or who it was written for. The bodies were taken for autopsy, and here is where the official investigation failed in a way that cannot be undone. The State Medical Examiner's Office in 1966 was overwhelmed, understaffed, behind on cases. By the time an autopsy was conducted, weeks after the bodies were recovered, internal decomposition was severe. Toxicology testing requires intact organ tissue. There was not enough left to test. The autopsy was completed. The cause of death section recorded one conclusion: undetermined. No poison identified, no trauma confirmed, no mechanism of death established. Whatever killed Cruz and Viana decomposed alongside them on that hill. The case was logged and largely left there. Investigators did not stop at the scene. They extended the inquiry to the men's homes in Campos dos Goitacazes. What they found there added a layer that the scene on Vintém Hill had only implied. In both homes, they found materials used to cut and shape lead. The masks had not been purchased. They had been made deliberately, by hand, in advance. This was not improvised equipment. This was preparation. They also found literature, books and pamphlets connected to spiritism and contact with non-human entities. Among them, references to a Brazilian theosophical movement associated with a spirit entity called Ramatis. Writings that described how contact with higher beings was possible and that such contact might be accompanied by intense, blinding light. The lead masks in that context were not symbolic, they were functional. If you believed that an encounter with a spiritual or extraterrestrial force would produce light strong enough to destroy your vision, you would protect your eyes. You would make something to cover them. A friend of the two men confirmed what the evidence at home suggested. Cruz and Viana were active members of a group that called itself scientific spiritualists, people who used technical knowledge, electronics, radio equipment, signal theory as tools for attempting contact with beings beyond the physical world. The friends said they had been preparing for something specific, a planned event, something with a schedule. The notebook had a schedule. What those capsules contained, the capsules they were instructed to ingest at 1830, was never established. No substances were recovered at the scene, no packaging, no residue that survived long enough to be analyzed. The capsules mentioned in the notebook are gone, along with the cause of death. 3 explanations have been proposed for what happened on Vintém Hill. Each accounts for some of the evidence. None accounts for all of it. The first is accidental death during a self-directed ritual. Under this theory, Cruz and Viana went to the hill voluntarily. The capsules they ingested at 1830 contained a psychedelic substance, something intended to induce an altered state of consciousness that would allow contact with extraterrestrial or spiritual entities. The lead masks were protection against the light they expected to follow. The dose was too high, or the substance was more dangerous than they knew. Both men died simultaneously, on the hill, more or less as planned, except for the dying. This theory fits most of the physical evidence: the advanced preparation, the notebook's timing, the masks, the isolation of the location. It does not require a third party. It does not require a motive beyond belief. It cannot be confirmed without toxicology that no longer exists. The second theory is homicide. Under this reading, Cruz and Viana were brought to the hill in good faith, believing they were participating in a contact experiment organized by their group. Someone else, a third person, possibly a leader or organizer, provided the capsules. Those capsules were lethal. The person left before the bodies were found. The notebook was written by that third party. Cruz and Viana were not the authors of their own instructions. They were following orders from someone whose identity has never been established. This theory explains Miguel's visible anxiety at the bar. He was waiting for confirmation, for a contact, for someone who may or may not have arrived. But no third person was ever identified. No witness places anyone else on that hill. No motive has ever been found. No suspect has ever been named. The third possibility is that they knew exactly what they were doing and chose it. A voluntary ritual death, deliberate, prepared for in advance, an attempt to cross into a state of existence they believed was real and accessible. The suits, the timing, the formal preparation, all of it consistent with a ceremony rather than an accident. There is no note that says so explicitly. There is also nothing that rules it out. All three theories arrive at the same wall: the toxicology that was never completed. Without knowing what was in those capsules, the case cannot be resolved by evidence. It can only be decided by assumption. As of today, the lead masks case remains officially unsolved. Brazilian federal authorities have no active investigation. The original case file exists, but full access to the documentation has never been made public. In May 2025, the Brazilian government declassified a collection of UFO-related documents, 893 reported sightings from 1952 to 2023, many from the 1960s. The lead masks case resurfaced in connected discussions. Media covered it. Podcasts revisited it. Nothing new emerged. The declassification added historical context to an era. It did not add a cause of death to a case file. What would a proper reinvestigation require? The bones of Cruz and Viana may still hold trace evidence. Certain compounds persist in skeletal material long after soft tissue is gone. Modern forensic toxicology has tools that simply did not exist in 1966. A formal exhumation and reanalysis has never been carried out. The group they belonged to was never fully mapped. Who organized it? Who else was involved? Whether anyone else participated in similar rituals before or after August 1966. Those questions were asked once and not followed far enough. The notebook. A definitive handwriting analysis was never completed. The question of who actually wrote those instructions has never been formally answered. Two men climbed Vintém Hill on August 17, 1966. They followed a schedule written in a small notebook. They ingested something at 18:30. They put on their lead masks. They waited. Whatever they were waiting for did not save them. The capsules are gone, the organs are gone, the official cause of death is gone. What remains is the notebook and the question of who wrote it. This file is open.